Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Pilot Lawyer Podcast. Thank you for your attention while this important legal information is reviewed. What you hear should not replace consultation with an attorney and should not be considered advice for your situation. On behalf of the Pilot Lawyer and your entire crew, it's our pleasure to have you aboard.
Welcome, aviators, to the Pilot Lawyer Podcast with us, the Eisen brothers at the Eisen Law Firm, where aviation law is all we do, nothing else. You're here for what we do best, navigating the FAA medical certification process for pilots and those who want to become pilots. And as we say around the office, if you don't laugh, you cry.
It's true.
I'm crying right now. And for the next 30 minutes, we hope to bring you the lighter side of what can otherwise be a frustrating process.
Non-flippantly.
So whether you are laughing at us or with us, join us brothers as we discuss the fascinating world of FAA medical certification. Now I'll tell you something.
Why are you crying?
I'll tell you why I'm crying. We're looking at this FAA fast track.
14 pages, people.
Well, that's with all the little nooks and crannies of the hyperlinks within the AME guidelines. But that's right. Fast track for ADHD and use of ADHD medications. So this just came out today at the time of recording this podcast. So podcast will probably come out in a few days, but this is fresh off the presses.
Put a rush on it.
Put a rush on it, baby. Speaking of rush, do you think looking cursory review of this fast track, quote unquote? Now, whenever I say fast track on this podcast, I'm going to be using air quotes because this is radio. I want you to use them with me. Does this look fast to you?
How many pages is this? I feel like it's 30 pages. You print this off straight from the FAA?
That's probably a business
from
deduction.
Their website.
Printing this off is a business deduction.
I'm telling you. It's
buy more ink and paper.
I don't even think I can count this high. 1, 2.
We know.
I think I already stated that
Like
it was 14 pages.
Yeah,
14 pages?
With all the hyperlinks.
Yeah, I knew I
and stuff.
couldn't count that high.
So what is it? Typically, before today, if you had any history of ADHD or have had a history of using ADHD medications, typically, not in perhaps every single instance, but typically you would have been required to do at least the initial battery of neuropsychological testing with a HIMSS neuropsychologist. I wouldn't say you're too far off today from having to do the same thing. So we're going to do sort of a live walking through the new protocol and giving our candid thought process on it.
I've seen ways to disarm nuclear bombs with less flow patterns than this has here.
Sure. So looking at the guidelines themselves. So if you walked into your AME's office, your aviation medical examiner's office, and you presented with the following, your AME could issue you on the spot, but your records would still go to the FAA for them to review, even though they've issued the medical certificate. So what is that? What are those prerequisites? Well, one, you must have had no is in capital letters, no treatment or use of ADHD medication for any reason in the past 4 years. That's 4 years. And no symptoms in the past 4 years. And no instability in academic, occupational, or social functioning within the last 4 years.
Prove it.
And no other psychiatric conditions or diagnoses, current or historical. So what you're looking at there is you have to check all of those boxes. In fact, it says the individual will need to see a psychologist or neuropsychologist for records review and evaluation. The section may be performed virtually in compliance with state and federal regulations, blah, blah, blah. It goes on to say, if the FAA ADHD summary is not provided in any yes answers, any AME concerns are unable to verify history, go to row B. So in other words, if you can't say no to all those things I just listed, no treatment, no symptoms, no instability, and no psychiatric conditions, this isn't going to work for you, and it's the same old, same old. So how many people would you say are going to be able to take advantage of this?
Well, try not to be too flippant about it.
Sure.
I'm sure there are some individuals out there who were treated with ADHD medications when they were in middle school or high school, that their parents took them in, got the evaluation, got on the medication for one reason or another.
There may be a small...
Now they're in their 30s, 40s, whatever, looking at this application, thinking, I gotta put this down, and they should put it down, even though they haven't treated for it since they were in high school or the end of high school or maybe beginning of college.
Put it down 18M or
put down 18M, and so
there is a small population.
There may be some people here that this could apply for.
Those individuals, however, would have to have had no other psychiatric condition or diagnosis ever in their life. So it will require an understanding of their medical history and the records of their medical history, because I can't tell you how often we see medical records where somebody has been diagnosed with and treated for ADHD to then later on, also be diagnosed with something else, generalized anxiety disorder, and so on and so forth.
So before the individual goes to the AME based on this, what are we calling this? ADHD fast track? Okay.
Fast track.
Let's say before they go to see their AME, do they already need to have gone to a psychologist or a neuropsychologist to review all this stuff and have something written
well,
up?
That's the thing. So it appears as though, it says right here, the individual need to see a psychologist or a neuropsychologist for records review and evaluation. Now,
How is this any different than what the FAA used to
Let me
request?
just go ahead and tell you right here. Now, what documents would need to be gathered per this thing? You had to collect the following information and send to the psychologist or neuropsychologist. Now, let me back up. The evaluation and report for this ADHD document checklist to be completed by the psychologist or neuropsychologist must be performed 90 days before the AME exam. Before the AME exam. It says within, but why would you do it after? So you have to collect the following information and send to the psychologist or neuropsychologist for review before your appointment. Pharmacy records within the last 4 years. So if they're checking to make sure you don't have any ADHD medication in the last 4 years, but be careful what other medications might be on there.
What page is this on?
This is on the Attention Deficit Disorder FAA ADHD document checklist. So you gather pharmacy records, medical records related to the diagnosis and treatment for ADHD. So what else is going to be on those records? Any other evaluations or treatment records related to ADHD or learning issues from any of the following, if applicable: psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, school counselor, education specialist teacher, speech therapist, and or occupational therapist. So you got to get all those records.
What's interesting there, too, is that, it starts off, I can see people messing this up right off the bat. Well, A asked for pharmacy records within the last 4 years, and then they go out and they get their ADHD records from their psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, school counselors within the last 4 years. But that's not what it's asking for.
Your lifetime.
Yeah, so you're still...
Any other evaluation or treatment records. Yeah, and then it asks for medical records related to any other condition for a non-ADHD diagnosis, which was treated with ADHD medication. So
I was reading records today from somebody that was treated with Adderall for anxiety.
Sure. So that would trigger it. Driver's license records from all states where a license has been issued within the past 4 years. Well,
that's
sure.
Is that new?
Yeah, no, I think that happens with the current battery of testing, but even still, what's going to be on that?
Yeah. There's my undisclosed DUI.
Yeah. Academic records, all transcripts through the highest grade or degree. I know Alex, you could probably get him up to the 5th grade.
Yeah.
Section 504.
If our mom still has them.
Yeah. Section 504, she destroyed those. Section 504 plans and any IEPs, individualized education programs. Then the coup de grace, personal statement, which describes all items on the FAA ADHD personal statement guidelines. Now, the personal statement guidelines has 14 pieces of information.
Go to page 722.
Pull it up. Let's see if we can't find page 1000. 1. Why did you seek treatment or an evaluation for ADHD?
My mom made me.
Yeah, that's a look. What symptoms and behaviors did you have?
Bad kid.
Why were you prescribed an ADHD medication and other treatment? What? Yeah, you're
doctor said
a
so.
doctor,
Doctor,
right?
right, yeah.
Well,
I don't know. The doctor told me.
well, I'm a doctor. What medications were prescribed? List all medications prescribed or otherwise used and reason for changes in
I don't
medications,
remember.
if any. List approximate dates. Yeah. If you were prescribed or otherwise took ADHD medications, did it help? Oh, well, prescribed?
Yeah, it
What
did.
do you mean
Yeah.
prescribed?
Yeah, it helped.
Yeah,
It helped a lot.
Oh, so you have it?
Oh, so
you
got
have it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need it. Okay.
I like this.
This is
or
all set
I
up.
like this. If you were prescribed or otherwise took. So you were taking ADHD medication, you weren't prescribed.
Prescribed
So,
it, yeah.
So now you got substance
right.
dependence.
yeah, you got something
Or
or use
abuse
You
or
got
something.
you got something there. Well, it's outside of 2 years. If it's 4 years, I don't know.
That's
crazy.
Then substance dependence, lifetime disqualification.
True.
We're gonna get you.
Did the treatment improve your academic, occupational, or social life? Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
sure.
Definitely did.
Met my wife.
Listen, this is serious. Don't get.
Oh,
don't
my
get silly.
apologies. My
Too flip-
apologies.
You're the flippant one.
Yep.
Did you experience any adverse effects, side effects from the medication? No, it felt great.
That one, you're screwed either way on that one.
Yeah. Who was involved in diagnosing and treating your ADHD? List all professionals involved: teacher, school counselor, therapist, psychologist, primary care physician, psychiatrist, or education specialist, if applicable. Were you diagnosed with any other conditions such as depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, autism spectrum disorder, or oppositional defiant disorder? Why are you writing you don't qualify, sir. If you're writing this statement, you've gotten down to that one, you said yes, you don't qualify for this fast track. Were you diagnosed with a learning disorder, dyslexia, reading difficulties, math difficulties?
Was that one disqualified from the?
It says,
track?
It's that.
no other psychiatric conditions or diagnoses.
Hey, listen, I'm
Was
just
that what
asking
about
for
the
less
instability?
informed.
I think that's leading to the no instability
No,
in academic,
yeah.
occupational,
Yeah.
social functioning.
Yeah,
That's probably why I don't want your
This
driver's
personal
record.
statement is nothing but a setup
a
to
lo-
disqualify
yeah.
from the fast track.
Which of the following were performed by the person who diagnosed you with ADHD? Include all that apply. Interview with a psychologist, psychiatrist, neuropsychologist, primary care physician, or provider pediatrician. Interviews with others such as parents, teachers, friends, etc. Completion of forms and questionnaires specify completed by self and or others. Computer testing. Psychological testing conducted by a psychologist or neuropsychologist. Other specify. If no testing is performed, that should be stated. So essentially, if you've had testing done, we're going to want to see that testing because there may be cognitive deficiencies on there that need to be evaluated with further testing.
Yeah, good luck getting that if that was 20 years ago.
Sure.
Any of us, really.
How did the symptoms of ADHD change over time? Are the symptoms gone? And if so, as of when?
Got better with medication.
Describe coping strategies you learned to deal with ADHD or any other diagnosis. Are they still used? Nope. Not using those anymore.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm using the medication.
Yeah.
every one of these questions is just designed to make it more difficult.
Describe your current ADHD symptoms and behaviors.
I mean, okay, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds in analysis on this because literally we're just looking at this here
This
today.
came out.
But-
Could be great.
If you incorrectly respond to one of these questions in your personal statement, and the FAA relies on this to give you a medical, could they in turn say that you falsified the application
would
and then
think so.
and then
That's-
bring an action against
I
you to
would say-
revoke it? Maybe even have criminal liability as well.
Yeah, it just looks at 67.403. And that's where they get folks on concerns with respect to falsification. And it's not necessarily just what's on your medical application. It's really just about anything. Because 14 CFR 67.403 says that no person may make or cause to be made a fraudulent or intentionally false statement on any application for a medical certificate or on a request for an authorization for special issuance authorization or statement of demonstrated ability under this part. A fraudulent or intentionally false entry in any logbook, record, or report that is kept, made, or used to show compliance with any requirement for any medical certificate or for any authorization or SOTA under this part, a reproduction for fraudulent purposes of any medical certificate under this part, or an alteration of any medical certificate under this part.
So I mean, you look at number 11 here on what you have to put for the personal statement. It has A through G. And this is which of the following were performed by the person who diagnosed you with ADHD. I mean,
Oh, I
Sure.
know.
How do you know? But, if you start guessing and you start putting stuff down and you put it down wrong, I mean, you just
guessing.
open yourself
Yeah.
up for all sorts of issues here with this personal statement. And I'm not saying that
Not to do it.
not to do it, but you better make sure that when you do it,
you do it right.
you do it right.
So that's step 1 on gathering the records. Step 2, remember to make a copy of all the records above, as you will need to bring a copy to your AME to upload into your FAA record.
You need a copy for your AME, your priest, your wife.
Parole officer. Number 3, in some cases, the psychologist or neuropsychologist may request the entire FAA medical file. So there's that. Once you've gathered all the records and you've done an affidavit as to the history of your life, it doesn't actually have to be notarized, but you have to then see a psychologist or neuropsychologist. Now, the interesting thing here is that it can be done virtually. You don't have to actually go for this record review in person per se. So that would maybe open you up to a wider array of neuropsychologists or psychologists that could handle this outside of, if you don't have someone local. So there may be a benefit there. I would give them a round of applause for that. Where is that? Where's that thing?
I don't even feel like giving it to them.
Okay,
It's
fine.
useless, given how much they got to do otherwise.
Sure. So the fast track information for a psychologist or neuropsychologist. Here's what they instruct the psychologist and neuropsychologist. The individual you're evaluating is a pilot or air traffic control specialist with a reported history of ADHD and or use of ADHD medications. Your findings will assist in determining this individual's eligibility for an FAA medical certificate or clearance. Acceptance of this case for evaluations assumes you have the necessary training and experience to conduct an ADHD evaluation. So that's another thing.
Which page is this on?
This is on the information for the psychologist and neuropsychologist.
Page 2008.
Yeah, that's right. So at the top, though, it said that the psychologist or neuropsychologist must be a doctoral level, PhD or PSYD, whatever, licensed psychologist or neuropsychologist with training and experience in the evaluation of ADHD. So it doesn't specifically say HIMSS trained psychologist or neuropsychologist.
How is that any different than what it presently is? Because generally, if you apply and you put down an 18M, you got a history of ADHD, your AME defers it, and then eventually FAA comes back and they ask for a whole bunch of information, right? And then one of the things they're going to ask for is an evaluation, a current evaluation from a treating physician, right?
Yeah.
Which would probably be a psychiatrist or
well,
a
unless
psychologist.
it's a primary care physician or whether the other, your
Okay, so
your
we've
school
knocked
nurse.
one person out of this whole thing now. But I mean, essentially, this seems to be kind of just a more, I don't
Use
know.
your words.
I'm trying to, if you don't cut me off. I'm saying that this just seems to be a more or less verbalized approach to what the FAA already requested. They're just putting it out there now in writing as opposed to waiting
Sure.
for you to apply and then
Putting it out there in
springing it
writing
on you.
until
Yeah.
you go to your psychologist first before
Sure.
you actually go for your
Sure.
exam.
Now, here's the thing.
Am I wrong here? or
No,
am I
you're
just,
not right.
I'm
You're
not right.
You're not wrong.
I'm not right, but I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Has your FAA medical certificate been denied? Are you concerned you may not be able to get a medical certificate from the FAA? Are you at risk for FAA action for failing to report your medical history appropriately? Call the pilot lawyer at 1-855-FAA-1215 to discuss your options for getting the FAA to issue your medical certificate and get you flying. We are happy to evaluate your case and discuss with you a plan for presenting your case to the AME or the FAA. Aviation law is all we do, nothing else.
I bet that's where they put the commercial on this one. That was a good little spot. Now they're going to start it now.
Yeah, cut all this out.
So that being said, so what are you going to do when you go see the neuropsychologist or psychologist? Does it look pretty? No, you're going to give them all these records, right? You're going to give them all the records that you've collected over the past probably 6 months it's taking you to get all this stuff. And then the neuropsychologist or the psychologist is going to complete this form, which was updated as of August 30th, 2023. Fast Track FAA ADHD Summary. The instruction to the pilot or air traffic control specialist is as follows. Please take this summary to a doctoral level psychologist or neuropsychologist with training and experience in the evaluation of ADHD, preferably someone with additional subspecialty training in aviation-specific topics.
Now we're talking hymns.
Yeah, so take it to a HIM psychologist.
Yeah,
Essentially, is
we're
what-
not going to tell you that.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you exactly who that person would be or what the moniker is, but
Well,
You
that's the
figure
thing.
it
Yeah,
out.
we're gonna.
Well, let
yeah.
you spend all that time, money, and energy, and then just deny it once you get there.
Well, this person doesn't know anything about aviation.
Yeah, they don't know
medicine.
the aviation standards.
Sure. So the psychologist and neuropsychologist should enter the requested information in the space provided below. When completed, submit the following to your AME for review and upload into DIWS.
Oh, yeah. What's the DIWS?
Document Imaging Workflow System.
Well, how's Joe Schmo, the applicant, no
Who
offense
knows?
to Joe Schmo out there, going to know what DIWS is?
If there is a Joe Schmo, I'd like them to call in.
Please.
863-712-9475.
No calls, huh? Okay. So they want the completed summary, which is what I'm talking about here. This piece of paper. The actual clinical report, not patient portal notes from the doctoral level psychologist or neuropsychologist. So it's going to be an actual. So not only is that the neuropsychologists have to execute this, but they also have to write a report and all supporting documents addressing each item listed on the ADHD document checklist that we just talked about.
I'm wondering though. So like these kids who have ADHD treatment.
Everyone's a kid to you.
Whatever. In elementary, middle school, whatever. They can't come up with records. Does that kick them out of this program?
And well, they got that statement saying they hadn't taken any medication in 4 years and no prescription records. So that's going to be the thing. Well, son, I don't have any records from your history, so I can't really help you.
Mm-hmm.
You probably have to go to the facility and say that no records exist. So that's where it's going to get into a realm of discretion, I would think. What do you think, Christopher? You're looking over there like a beaver with your tongue and your teeth jowling at me.
I would be love to do anything more right now than looking at this.
Well, that's what your wife says every night. So if you're the psychologist or neuropsychologist completing this summary, here's what they want to know. Does the applicant currently display any symptoms of ADHD per the DSM?
Whoa, how's
Yes
that?
or no?
We're going to reference DSM all of a sudden?
Yeah, all of a
Since when
sudden-
is that
yeah, all of a
relevant
sudden
in the
that-
regulatory world?
That's right. So any symptoms? Well, what are any symptoms? Has there been any instability in academic, occupational, or social functioning in the last 4 years? Well, what's instability? You got a C in calculus. Has the individual taken ADHD medication at any time within the last 4 years? Does the individual have a history of any other psychiatric diagnosis or treatment? Attach a current detailed clinical report discussing the history, medications, diagnosis, and prognosis. Explain any yes answers or concerns. Remember to review the requirements on the FAA ADHD evaluation report requirements. And we've gotten there. And then they want the psychologist or psychiatrist to attest to the following. I am a psychologist or neuropsychologist with training and experience in conducting ADHD evaluations. I have reviewed all the required items on the ADHD document checklist. I have additional subspecialty training in aviation-specific topics.
There you go.
It says then aviation medicine, preferred, not required.
You know what?
But it says here that
Okay,
this
so-
summary is not required. However, it will help streamline significantly, in all caps, decrease FAA review time. So then it gets to the AME actions. If all items fall into the no category, the AME may issue a medical certificate, if otherwise qualified. Submit this summary, the actual clinical visit report, and all supporting documentation reviewed to the FAA. If any items fall into the yes category, the evaluator should explain. The AME must defer. Psychological or neuropsychological evaluation with testing will be required. So now you've done all of this. The AME decides they want to defer you. There you go.
Which is about what you probably, you would have just gotten deferred it off the bat, but you still would have had to provide all this junk anyhow.
Yeah, but you would have started with the AME, right? Technically before.
Here's my question. Let's get really in the weeds. This whole subspecialty training in aviation-specific topics, parentheses, aviation medicine, bracket, preferred, not required, in bracket, in parentheses. I wonder if this could be argued in NTSB trials, whether or not the FAA really requires HIMSS-trained individuals to make a determination.
Well, that's a good question. Let me tell you this much, though. This is what they're looking for in those evaluation reports from the neuropsychologist or psychologist.
Because at the end, it may only decrease the review time.
That's right.
Reviews.
Reviews.
That's it.
Hey, well, you would certainly wouldn't fall into this. you would be the standard track. The evaluation report must be performed within 90 days of the AME exam and must include the following. So when the psychologist is writing up a little what you do on your evaluation, this is what they're looking at.
Jeez.
Document if the review was completed virtually or in person. I mean, why is that? You've already said virtual is fine, so what difference is it going to make? I mean, I guess it's fine to document it, but are they going to distinguish differently if you're virtually done? List and summarize all documents reviewed. At a minimum, this must include all the items on the FAA ADHD document checklist, which we discussed. In the rare case in which a document cannot be obtained, explain in the report the reason it was not available and if this is a concern or not.
Insufficient.
Results of a thorough clinical interview, including collateral interviews, is needed. So we're going to call your teachers and make sure you behave in class. That includes detailed history regarding psychosocial and developmental history, a mental status examination, behavioral observations, an integrated summary of findings.
Is this a standard track? Or are we on
No, sir.
Oh, because I see this on the standard track too.
Well, yeah. Hey, well. Oh,
so how is there any difference between the standard and the fast track?
Well, because you're going to get this explicit diagnostic statement on the fast track that asks the following. Your clinical diagnosis or findings. Does the applicant currently display any symptoms of ADHD per DSM? So this is all the same thing from that checklist. Does the applicant meet DSM criteria for a diagnosis of ADHD? Do not simply list if ADHD is present or not. List all diagnoses present or past. Specify remission or residual or appropriate. If there is no DSM diagnosis, are there any concerns regarding neurocognitive impairments or deficiencies? If so, describe their nature and severity. Has there been instability in academic, occupational, or social functioning in the last 4 years? Has the individual taken medication for ADHD any time within the last 4 years? Does the individual have any evidence of a comorbid disorder that could pose a hazard to aviation safety, or a history of any other psychiatric diagnosis or treatment? Does your diagnosis or findings agree with the diagnosis noted in other supporting or historical documents you reviewed? So then they want them to complete that, do a full report, do a completed FAA summary document, and copies of all records. So essentially what you're looking at here, now the alternative is if you've had any treatment in the past 4 years, if you've had any other diagnosis, you're going to get deferred. You're going to have to go see a neuropsychologist. So you might as well go ahead and do all this anyhow. Get a neuropsychological evaluation and rule out that you have ADHD. I mean,
I like to shake the hand of the guy that came up with this.
So what do you think about this, Christopher?
I guess we'll get sued or something if I speak my mind.
Well, what do you think, Alex?
I'll second what he has to say.
Well, I think that pretty much sums things up. If you want our real opinion, you can give us a call. So do you think this is going to save anybody time?
No.
What are the pitfalls? Why would you need an attorney to help you with this? Go ahead and put in that shameless plug.
There's 8,000 pages here you got to go through to figure out whether or not you even can qualify to get fast-tracked. And then if you mess up one of these 9,000 pages that they got, you potentially open yourself up to falsification of your application, which could carry with it criminal liability as well as the revocation of your certificates. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at some point they're going to get revoked. I guarantee you that. It always seems to happen.
Fast track to a revocation if you don't put something down right.
So, make sure before you fill out your application and you go and you see your AME, you read all 12,000 pages. I mean, it's insane.
It seems so bad because we printed out all the hyperlinks, but
there's no hyperlinks. What hyperlinks are you talking?
These were hyperlinks.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So there's 15,000 pages.
Okay, so 2 lines and the whole thing. I mean, there's
well, this also includes the standard. Hey, I'm just trying to give a devil's advocate here, so it's not a circle,
devil's in the detail.
Circle, pat on the
He's
back.
no advocate. He's just making your life more miserable.
Well, that being said, I think...
hey, listen, I'm all for you being honest and telling the FAA exactly what's in your history. That's not the takeaway here. The point is, though...
If you do it wrong...
This process has complicated this beyond
what it was.
Reason. Anybody saying that this is a fast track or anybody saying that they advocated for this change... You need to question whether or not they're truly advocating for you, because now you have ended up with a process that is going to make it a lot more complicated, a lot more burdensome than honestly it would have been otherwise. I mean, sure, it wasn't fun before.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say I think what it's done for you is maybe shave the deferral time off if you get deferred. But all the stuff that the psychologist is going to have to do this summary, they're going to have to review all these records. They're going to have to interview.
And if you show up and you don't have all this,
yeah, what's going to happen then?
you're going to get deferred.
Yeah. So there's and then you're guaranteed an evaluation. So, I mean, prior with the standard track, as they're calling it, you could have done all of this ahead of time of your exam, submitted to the FAA. Sure, you would have gotten deferred. I think the only thing it does is if you've done all of this, it shaves off that deferral for something. Yeah, if you were
There's probably 2 people in the country this is going to help. If they actually even take the time to read this.
Most of the people that call us are either actively taking ADHD medication or have done so historically.
Within at least the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't even know where this 4 years comes from.
Yeah, where's 4 years? Where'd they get that from?
Why is this suddenly a number?
Although we are appreciative of the idea that they're going to try to streamline the process, I don't know that this does what they're looking at. Hey, what's that? Return base to final. Go ahead and give us your final thoughts, Alex.
I think you just summed it up beautifully right there with...
Why are you so afraid to talk on here?
I'm not afraid to talk. You just
don't know what to say.
I don't know what to say. You're just jibber-jabbering the whole time.
Well, what can you do? Well, you've logged another uneventful half hour.
Fast track it to the end.
Yeah. What is this?
32 minutes.
32 minutes. You've logged another uneventful...
By the time you cut out all the stuff you made them take out.
Listening to the Pilot Lawyer podcast and the random musings of Christopher Eisen. And even though our wives deny they know us in public, as will the advocates of the Fast Track ADHD protocol, we are the Eisen brothers of the Eisen Law Firm. We'll see you next time. Start gathering your records.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.